geopolitical news. Benjamin Fulford presents. The West will not be able to invent such sanctions to destroy Russia. Vladimir Zelensky works in his mansion for £34 million in Florida. There are more and more signs that we in the West are watching a giant fake show that is about to end. This was discussed last week in a conversation between a high-ranking agent of the FSB of Russia and a member of the White Dragon Society. I assume that we don't really have presidents, and all this is a kind of staged reality show created before our eyes, the FSB officer noted. There is plenty of evidence to support this. Did you know, for example, that according to the official Russian news agency TASS, Ukraine has not declared war on Russia? In addition, that Russian gas, which still flows through this country, is still the main source of income for the government of Ukraine? Also, did you know that the Rothschild family trading companies in Switzerland were still selling Russian goods to the rest of the world? Moreover, despite the embargo, Russian oil exports to the United States continue and even increase. For example, during the week from March 12 to 18, the United States bought 70,000 barrels of Russian oil per day, which is 80% more than the previous week. Then, of course, all those obviously fake shots about the Ukrainian war that flooded Western television screens. In the latest example, CNN reports on a fire in Edmonton, Canada, in Ukraine. The screenshot, taken before CNN blurred it out, clearly shows that the Edmonton Fire Department is on the scene. Rita Katz Studios, fake Bin Laden fame, they also work overtime, filming an employee of the Rothschilds and the so-called president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, who works in his $34 million mansion in Florida. The Russian FSB claims that he seems to be high on banned substances. We will not delve too deeply into the current global situation. We will only note that mortality rates around the world are the same as in previous years. We also note that it does not exist in Africa and other regions whose governments have refused to accept the whole fake event. High-level sources in both Eastern and Western secret societies say that the fake show that is taking place is just part of a process aimed at waking up Westerners with deeply brainwashed minds. It is arranged as a kind of initiation ceremony for the West. In anthropology, such ceremonies are called liminal events and refer to things like weddings or coming-of-age ceremonies that mark an important transition in life. In this case, a ceremony is being held to start a new era of love, progress, and harmony with nature, sources say. This will become clear in the near future, the sources promise. However, before this can happen, it is necessary to complete a real repressive campaign by the international military, agencies, and police against the ancient satanic cult that has seized the highest levels of power in most Western countries. This campaign is coming to an end, as most of the top leaders of this cult, including Hillary Rockefeller, Clinton, Jens Psaki, aka Mark Zuckerberg Rockefeller, and Klaus Rothschild, Schwab, have been arrested. These arrests appear in the form of announcements that they have become infected, despite the fact that they have completely taken the cocktail, and are self-isolating. Of course, the Hazar group will try to pretend that this is not happening by presenting fake versions of their leaders to the public. For example, like 3 different versions of Hillary. Here's what a Mossad source said about Psaki. She was taken back to repair a glitch in her programming. We both have a feeling that the original is out of order. After the last round of positive tests 5 months ago, she disappeared for 10 days. Look at her eyes. They are empty. Like without a soul. The sign of the AI avatar construction. The members of this cult, also known as the Sabatian Francoist or Hazar group, have indeed been trying to stage a fake Armageddon for years. The show we are exposed to on our screens is their staging of Armageddon. As shown by who sanctions Russia, their control network is now limited to Western puppet governments led by the fake Joe Biden. In other words, the entire planet has rebelled against their incompetent, bloody rule. The key to their eventual defeat is to overthrow their control over the Western financial system. That's why Vladimir Putin said that Russia would demand that the countries it called unfriendly, this includes the United States, Great Britain, and EU countries, pay for Russian gas in gold-backed rubles. Since the Hazar Group mainly controls counterfeit or unsecured paper money, gaining control of real money is the key to their victory. Western commodity traders and clearing houses are facing a liquidity crisis of historic proportions as the world demands that they pay with real, asset-backed, money. If you still think that the West can develop sanctions that maximize the pain for Russia while minimizing the risks to financial and price stability in the West, you might as well believe in unicorns, the Credit Suisse report says. Today Iran, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Nigeria, etc. they refuse to sell oil to the West in exchange for fiat currency. For example, in Nigeria, in the period from October 2021 to February 2022, Western companies received only 5% of the crude oil pumped through the Trans-Niger pipeline, because Nigerians decided to keep the oil for themselves. Another front on which the Hazar Group is being defeated is the battle for world public opinion. Quoting Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, "The actions of the West confirm that it cannot be relied on. We want a just world, free from wars, aggressive projects, or attempts to incite one country against another. We want to discuss how we will live on this planet in the future. Too many problems have accumulated, and the existing institutions are not able to solve them. Liberal democracy, it turns out, is not at all liberal and not at all democracy. All the values that the West preached to Russia, such as freedom of speech, market economy, inviolability of private property and the presumption of innocence are not worth a damn. The Chinese and others agree. The United States and NATO are not in a position to judge the moral standards of a country unless they apologize and compensate for the harm and suffering they have caused to the peoples of Yugoslavia, Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan," Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying said. America's forgotten nonsense about the bombing of Serbia. India also agrees. When the British slave-owning government tried to send a high-level delegation to India to convince them to isolate Russia, they were told they were not welcome. The Turks, historical rivals of the Russians, also do not participate. Their official news says, "The West has committed a kind of extermination of Muslims from Afghanistan to Libya, from Iraq to Somalia, and now they are calling on us, the people whose cities they painted red, to defend the West against Russia." They demonstrated their atrocities in secret torture centers that they have set up in 35 countries around the world. They were engaged in the slave trade through CIA planes. They used methods of slaughter and torture as if they were religious ceremonies, rites of initiation. One thing is for sure, this region will never lift a finger to protect the West, to protect Europe. As for Turkey, its leader Recep Erdogan resigned at last week's NATO summit for the first time in many days publicly again. A Mossad source said. Erdogan attended the meeting in Brussels. He wears a GPS bracelet on his ankle. He works with the alliance. A lot is going on behind the scenes. Many concessions are made, which are beneficial to everyone. The media doesn't say anything about it. For example, Erdogan is working with Israeli Prime Minister Bennett, Putin, Iran, and Saudi Arabia to form a kind of coalition for peace and prosperity of mankind. This is not reported in the MSM. All of them should show an impenetrable face to the Western clique of the Hazar Group. Erdogan and Putin are well aware that NATO and the United States, controlled by the group, will do everything possible to force Turkey and Russia to start a mess in the Black Sea. The Russian news agency TASS also reports that Erdogan spoke with Putin and was asked to mediate between the West and Russia in Ukraine. However, Erdogan has disappeared from official Turkish news sites, suggesting that he is still not allowed to return to Turkey. Another thing that is happening is a constant stream of horrific revelations about the crimes of the Hazar Group. For example, there are more and more revelations about the crimes of Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden will be charged, several sources agree. Here is an example of the demonic thinking of Western leaders, expressed by former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, who left this earth last week. Stall, we heard that 500,000 little people died. I mean, that's more than died in Hiroshima. And do you know if the price is worth it? Albright, I think it's a very difficult decision, but the price we think it's worth it. This we includes Bill and Hillary Clinton, David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, George Soros, and other harbingers of the New World Order. Madeleine Albright responds to interviewer Leslie Stahl about the more than 500,000 innocent deaths of Iraqi little people. We think the price is worth it. We also learn about some companies using these monsters as a cover. This is from a Canadian source, Black & Veatch and Chemex, construction of biolabs for DTRA since 2003. The Russian government has provided detailed evidence of this to the governments of the world. The analysis of the documents shows that not only tissue samples and human blood serum were exported abroad, but also dangerous pathogens and their carriers, the report says. They were, of course, created to develop ethnospecific biological weapons. It is also reported that a CIA-linked transport plane with biological weapons has just landed from Warsaw at Kraków-Balas Airport, Kraków, Poland, and another landed at Zadar Airport, Croatia, without registration plates. Everyone should know that the deadline is approaching. Checkmate is announced. The final explosion of the deep state is inevitable. Put on your helmets and divine armor, because before they leave, they will try to take as many people with them as possible, a Mossad source warns. You've already done a lot of damage. This is what happens when corporations take over the government, the media, and the education system. The critical mass of the West is now aware of the crimes committed against their people. When Justin Castro addressed the European Parliament last week, most of the deputies left, but some stayed to criticize him. I would really suggest that when the dust settles, a military tribunal will take place and all these people in the media, all these school administrators, all these doctors, politicians and real leaders will be brought to justice. If their guilt is proven, they should be executed, the doctor said. Vladimir Zelenko, thereby expressing the opinion of many people. Naturally, the Hazar group raises a storm of indignation to prevent justice. Everything is falling apart. While this report was being prepared, Fox News reported the following. The collection of ballots is part of a special operation. The Biden crime family and others have been arrested and detained. Fraud and the coming days will live on a barge in front of Gitmo and will appear before military tribunals. At the end of this week, we will update on the death of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Our source reports, news blocking is in place. Keep an eye on what's coming out in MSM over the next week or so. History is being prepared. One such story is that he was poisoned and saved by the White Hats. It looks like they should keep him alive in order to secure a conservative majority in the Supreme Court at the upcoming court hearings.